and let's go. So today we are here in Guildford to talk about Lewis Carroll. And before we go anywhere else, let me show you a little statue here. I'm gonna try not to get too close because there's one spot next to the statue where the signal drops a little, or at least it did earlier when I tried. Who might that be? I think that's as close as I can get. Yes, exactly. That's Alice through the looking glass. So through the looking glass is the place here. She's from an artist called Jean Argent, and that's from 1990. I think they did it. And she's placed here because just there behind the trees, we don't see much from this side. We'll go around, so I'll show you the facade. But there's a building there that was bought by Lewis Carroll. So we'll go around. I'll show you the front of the house. He never really lived in Guildford, but he bought the property here for his 6 unmarried sisters. Because he became the man of the household, after his father passed away. Exactly, Kurt. It's called the Chestnuts. We'll go and see the front of the building. But for now, this is the Guildford Castle. It's that's the keep there. It's an old fortress, really, dating back to the it was finished at the time of the son of William the Conqueror. Oh, you've been there, Kurt. You've been inside? Do you mean in the Chestnuts? So yeah, you might know William the Conqueror. He had the Tower of London built, but he also built 9 castles, 1 day walk from London. And Guildford is one of them. Right, I've got the sun right in front of me. It's harder to see the chat. So yeah, let me show you the front of the Chestnuts. So, although he never really lived here, he came to visit his sisters quite a lot, and he used it as a family home. And he died in here. Let me just show you another view of the castle from here. Oh, you saw Carroll's grave. Okay, yeah. So that's where we'll end the tour. I've not chosen the easiest route. We're gonna have to, it's gonna be a bit sporty for me because I'm gonna have to go up the hill. What happened is, see, it's meant to be already closed here, the castle grounds. Officially, it closes at dusk. And last time I was here in February, I was actually kicked out of the ground, and it was like much later. It was at least 7:30 and it was already very dark. But originally I wanted to do the tour the other way around, start on the mountain and come down here. But on Google it says it closes at 6:30. So I was like, if I get here and I cannot see Alice, I better do it the other way around. So I've swapped everything around. So we're gonna have to go uphill. So if you hear me huffing and puffing, I do apologize in advance. So here we are in Cliff Gardens. Actually, later on in my second tour tonight, I might tell you about someone that allegedly fell down the cliff here. But that's the building. That's the Chestnuts. So that's the house that was bought by Lewis Carroll. And first, I probably should tell you his real name, because of course Lewis Carroll was a nom de plume, a pen name. His actual name is Charles Lutwidge Dodgson. And when he chose his pen name, what he did was quite smart. He basically translated it to Latin and back again to English. Let me show you in the middle of the road. This is the castle arch here. It dates back to the time of Henry III. Apparently it was destroyed, damaged by a truck in the 70s. They say you can still see the scar, but I don't know where the scar is. Anyway, so yeah, what is done, so Charles in Latin is Carolus, of course. well, if you translate it back to English, it's Carroll. Let me show you, we've got a letterbox here, and this is George the Sixth, Rex. So George the Sixth. So it's quite old. Some of you might know I like to check my letterboxes. And this is the Guildford Museum. It's well, what happened? It's actually quite an old building. There was a gentleman that bought the castle from James I. So it was a royal castle, but then it was bought sold to a private man. 24 shillings he paid. I don't know how much that'll be in today's money, but it doesn't sound like much. And he wanted to live in the keep, and it turned up that it was not good enough. His name was Francis. He then decided to build that little house instead. So he built the house that became the museum. So that was in 1612, to give you an idea. So we got quite a few old buildings in Guildford. The church in the middle there, the tower, it's a Saxon tower. So that's quite old. We believe it's the oldest building in Guildford. And you know what? Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, he sometimes preached here because he was trained as a religious man, as a reverend. Let me get off the road. And Lutwidge, by the way, I didn't tell you, but Lutwidge, if you translate into Latin, it's Ludovic. Ludovic in French, Louis. Lewis. So see what he's done again, into Latin, and Latin back to English, and that's how he got his pen name. And let me show you this beautiful little street. It used to be known as Peacepot Alley. They've renamed it, they've rebranded because it was not very sexy. And you can see how we've got space at the bottom, you know, but you can see how at the top it's very, very skinny. Because of course people used to drop their chamber pots through the windows and everything, and that's why it was called Peacepot Alley, because back in the days, you know, before the sewage system, people used to drop everything on the streets, you know, all their chamber pots and everything, and apparently this little alleyway was literally like an open sewer. Everything would go down this way to go towards the riverway. And that's where we're heading to, the river. So back to Charles. As a young boy, so he's not from here. He's from Cheshire. He was from a big family. His dad was a reverend as well. So from a young age, he was quite strong into religion, and. He was one of 11 siblings. No, not time to cross. Yes, and in his little town in Cheshire, Daresbury, it's called. I don't know if any of you have been there. He well, as a child, he was already quite intelligent, but he had a bit of speech impediment. He had a bit of a stammer. Some say that he suffered from dyslexia, but apparently there's no evidence of that, and I have to say I actually doubt it. For me, it sounds impossible. I'm dyslexic myself, and you know, he had written a full manuscript of Alice in the Wonderland to give it to the real Alice. I'll tell you about her in a moment. With not a single mistake, you know, not a single crossing or whatever. I mean, even if I copied from a book, I wouldn't be able to spell a full, to write a full page with no mistakes. So I doubt he had dyslexia. This is a watermill here. It's a very old one, but it's been reopened fairly recently, 2006. It's quite cool to have some clean energy. And so yeah, he was probably not dyslexic. Personally, I doubt it. And you know what? Because whatever Lewis was writing, it doesn't most of the time it doesn't really make sense, and that's exactly the type of text they make you read when you take a test for dyslexia, because the dyslexic people, we don't really read as such. We recognize a few syllables or words, and then we guess. And reading a text with no sense, it's extremely difficult because we cannot guess. I had a Spanish teacher that used to love to make me read poetry out loud in front of the classroom, because I would come up with something completely different, but it would still rhyme and still somehow make sense. And she found it very amusing. So every time we had poetry, she would make me read. So yeah, personally, I don't believe he had dyslexia. He was a little, maybe not the most sociable as a teenager. By the way, where are all the... Oh, Andre, we are in Guildford. So we are in Surrey. To give you an idea, we are 27 miles southwest of London. So Surrey, it's quite a wealthy area. So this is the River Wey. You might see there's a lock here, so that's to go up and down when it's not flat. And so yeah, Guildford, Surrey. It's not far from London. To give you an idea, my train is it's only 32 minutes to Clapham Junction, but then I need to cycle from Clapham Junction. I used to work here myself. I worked here for about 3 years, but I never lived here. I was commuting every day from London. That was a very expensive commute. And then the tax office decided that the self-employed that go to the same place every day did not have the right to claim their commute anymore. So I had to stop that. The name of the... Andre, if you find Guildford Castle, then you could, because Andre wants to see it on the map, then you can pop the castle on Google Map and then just follow the river. I'm by the River Wey. Or you can put the theatre, the Yvonne Arnaud Theatre. That's where I am. So that's the river here. So let's get back to Charles, shall we? He was a great mathematician, and he started to teach at Oxford. And at Oxford, he met the dean of Christ Church in Oxford. They became good friends. And the dean had, he had a few kids. He had 10 in total, but he had 3 daughters that became quite close to Charles. Really, I think what's really impressive with Lewis Carroll really is that he had clearly kept. He really remembered what it's like to be a child. Yes, exactly, Henry Liddell. You know, if you look at Alice in the Wonderland, you know, those adults, those characters, they're like the adults for the kids. You know, when you are a kid, although you speak English, sometimes the adults, they don't make sense. Sometimes they scream and they're yelling and you don't know why. For example, you might have just drawn a lovely little elephant on your bedroom wall, and then the adults are screaming and you don't understand why. So it's kind of like, you know, with Alice in the Wonderland, it's quite evident that all those weird characters, they're just the adults in the eyes of a kid. So through his life, he did spend a lot of time with kids that were not his. Some of those relationships today might kind of raise eyebrows, but there's no evidence of anything improper. And I'm certainly not here today to trash his legacy. I'll tell you what we do know. Some people do believe that he was a repressed pedophile, but we'll get there. So he did certainly enjoy spending a lot of time with children, hundreds of them through his life. And he spent a lot of time with the 3 daughters, Henry Liddell's daughters. So you had Alice Liddell, Edith, and Lorena. it's quite clear that Alice was his favorite. They had met already years earlier. I think he was only 24 when they first met. And one day, he was not alone, he was with another colleague. He took the girls on a boat on the River Thames. This is not the Thames, by the way, this is the Wye River. It goes all the way to Weybridge, and then it joins the Thames. And so they went for a little, hi Katie, they went for a little boat ride. And through the boat ride, the girls were like, we want a story. And he's like, next time. And the girls are like, yeah, but it's next time already. And then he had to improvise a story. That is the story that became Alice in the Wonderland. Originally, it was called Alice in the Underground. Sorry, I just had a, whatever it was, an insect in my hair. And he changed the name several times. He kept adding to the story. But really, it was not meant to be written. Apparently, it's little Alice that begged him to write it down for him because she wanted the story again. And little Alice, she's right here. So we've got another statue of Alice. So you've got the rabbit. Let me give you a nice angle if any of you wanted a screenshot. So it's Alice and her sister. It's interesting that the artist did not tell us which sister. I'm guessing it's Lorena because of the age difference, but we don't know. Edith, she died, but she died a bit later. I don't think she was still there that day anyway. So that's the rabbit, and because of I don't think that was on purpose, but because of the size of it, you often see kids riding it. Little kids, they come and sit on it and they ride the rabbit. That's from, I think it's 1984, this one. Edwin Russell was the artist. Let me show you the girls. Here they are. So that's an illustration of them reading the book. So that's little Alice here, the real Alice, the Alice Liddell. And that's also the opening scene of the book. Right, let's go. Let's go towards his resting place. So, yeah, he did spend a lot of time with the girls, and Charles was also a big fan of the new art of photography. People called it the black art because the photographies were, of course, black and white, and because of the time in the dark that you'd have to spend to develop, the photographs. This is St. Nicholas, by the way. And at the time, it was long exposure, and he used to take a lot of photographs of those little girls. Now, today, when we say photos of children straight away, I know because I used to be actually when I worked here, I worked as a swimming pool photographer. So you can imagine taking photos of kids in swimming pool, people are straight away paranoid and you need a DBS check and, and all that. In Victorian times, there was absolutely nothing wrong in taking photos of children. If anything, children represented the innocence. And that included photos of naked children. That was just a form of art that for them, if you want to clean your boots, there's a lovely 17th century, I guess, boot scraper here. Oh, you've sat on an Alice statue in Central Park. Oh, that's cool. So yeah, in Victorian times, it was not weird to take photos of naked children, and Charles certainly did it with the little girls. He took a lot of photos of them posing in many different outfits and positions. And let me find a way to cross. Yes, there we go. And not only the girls, yeah, he photographed many people. Let me show you a photo of the girls. I should have one. Let me go in the shade because otherwise you won't see anything. Oops. I'll just cross over here. Here we are. So Here they are, the three of them. So Alice is to the left, you've got Lorena in the middle, and Edith on the, Alice is to the right, Edith is to the left. But sometimes the poses were interesting, like this one here. It's getting little Alice to pose as a beggar. Today that would definitely raise eyebrows, because the pose can be seen as a little bit sexy, and technically she's got a nipple out. But again, at the time it was really not something that, even the dean, Henry, was very well aware, and he would have seen the photos himself. Sometimes we kind of apply the standards of today into historical characters and everything. But so those photos, there's no, for me at least, there's nothing dodgy there. And he has taken photographs of fully naked children as well, but then he would color them, he would paint over them. And I'm not showing you those images because I don't want photos. Hi Bunny. I don't want photos of, I don't want any issues with YouTube. But it's at the time, again, nothing funny with that. The reason why we really think he might have had some feelings for little Alice. Alice at the time was 11. The age of consent for a little girl at the time was 12. I know it's extremely young, but at the time it was 12. And sorry, I'm starting to huff and puff. It's a big hill. And suddenly there was a drift. Suddenly he was exiled from the deanery. All the letters were burned. He was no longer seeing the girls, and we do not know what happened. He used to keep a diary, but those pages are gone. So we do not know what happened there. So that's why it led to quite a few people speculating, really. Did he ask little Alice to marry him a year later? Did he... Yes, I'm going up the mount, Anjay. Did he do anything improper? We just don't know. We can only speculate. And maybe it had nothing to do with little Alice. Maybe he fancied their mum, Lorena. Lorena was the big sister as well as the mum. And because when you read his diaries, he talks a lot about his sin. What are they? But people that are very religious, they often talk about their sins. If you want to have an idea of the prices in Guildford, this little 2-bedroom terrace with a bricked up window, 585,000 if I remember right. So it is not cheap. It's one of the most expensive places outside of London. And I need to get back to the other side, bear with me. So it's an interesting case. There's also a documentary, a BBC documentary called The Secret Life of Lewis Carroll, where they try to really look at it again. And to be fair, a 1-bedroom, I don't know. I've seen some 1-bedroom for 300,000, but I don't know where. It could be a bit on the outskirts. To be fair, there is a photograph that was found in Museum Cassiti in Marseille. It is attributed to Lewis Carroll, it is frontal nudity. We believe it is Lorena. Facial experts have looked at it and they think it is consistent with being Lorena, so the big sister. And she would, at the time, we believe she was like 15 or 16, so at the time it would have been legal. And that might have been the problem, actually. That might have been why he had a rift with the family, with the Liddell family. We just don't know, and we do not know for sure Lorena Liddell. There's, experts have looked at the image. It is consistent with the type of paper, the type of the year it would have been taken, but we cannot prove for sure that it was indeed from Lewis Carroll. I need to breathe. And if that photograph was indeed from him, then yeah, it's a bit dodge, because it's frontal nudity, and you can see she's not really comfortable. So yeah, but we don't know. And you know, even if he did have some feelings for the little girls, you know, he probably never ever acted on it. So, you know, no, I'm not stopping. We're going there. And so yeah, that's for his relationship with little Alice. We do have one letter that Lorena sent to Alice years later when they were much older, because Alice, she got famous and she had enough of it. Everyone knew she was the inspiration for Alice in the Wonderland, and she kind of she just had enough, you know. And there's one letter when I think Lorena has just given an interview or something, and she writes to Alice saying, I had to say that it's because he was his manners were getting a bit too close to you or something like that. But that's really dodgy for Dodgson. Yeah, he actually, you know, the character of Dodo in Alice in the Wonderland. We think it was inspired from him with his stammer. Some of the characters were clearly inspired by people like the Queen of Hearts. She was very probably Queen Victoria, that was known to be a bit to have a stronger personality, let's say, or a bit of a temper. And the Mad Hatter, it's because of those hatters that used to use a lot of mercury to produce those hats, and it would drive them mad at the time. You know, we know now that mercury is terrible for the brain, and they were using mercury all day to make those hats waterproof. And now with Alice in the Wonderland, a lot of people have also speculated that he might have been on drugs. It is possible. I mean, when you look at the characters, you've got the character of the caterpillar. He keeps smoking out of a pipe. Could that be opium? You know, did Lewis take opium? Who knows? It was definitely not LSD, because they were not invented yet. They were invented in, I think it's 1949. You know, that they discovered the LSD by accident. But yeah, opium, it's very possible. But some people also believe that he, we're nearly there. Phew. Some people also believe that he might have had a neuronal disease that is known as the AITWS, Alice in the Wonderland syndrome, or some people also call it the Todd syndrome, because it was discovered by John Todd in 1955, no, 1995, no, 1955, I think. Yeah, we've made it. And that syndrome is interesting. It's a syndrome that you get when you, some people do get that when they have migraines. After or before the migraine, suddenly they'll be looking at their hands, and their hands would be much bigger than they usually are. Or looking at their feet, and their feet would be like almost like growing. Or if you're looking in the distance, some object might seem a bit closer than they are. And it's very disturbing, apparently, for the sufferers. It doesn't last for long, but if it happens, for example, if you're driving, it's crazy. And some people have speculated that maybe Charles suffered from that syndrome, that Todd's syndrome, and maybe that's how he got inspired. Who knows? And they said he had temporal lobes of epilepsy. Oh, I didn't know that. And so yeah, he had a wild imagination, that is for sure. I don't think we have to look into drugs to find the source. Anyone can. We don't need drugs to go that far. But yeah. Now, did he have that syndrome? It is very possible. And because you're right, Curti. He did in his diaries. He did refer to his migraines quite a lot, and because those that very syndrome, it does happen with migraines. It is very possible that that he did have it. Now, there is the man. That's the easiest grave to find in any cemetery. It's literally right by the entrance. Let me show you his epitaph. And the little tributes that people give him, that's quite sweet. I brought him the card earlier because I had a playing card in my bag, so I thought that's good for him. Yeah, I fell asleep. That's a nice way to put it. And of course, we've got the white rabbit everywhere. The white rabbit, some believe he might have been inspired by Henry Liddell, because apparently the Dean he was always watching his clock, and he was always running, he was always late. So, and of course, that's the type of thing that Alice might have caught, and they probably would have found it very funny. Yes, his Aunt Lucy is here as well, but I think I don't have much signal on that side, so I'll show you the newer part up there. Let me show you the little chapel as well. And well, there's one thing we need to clear up as well. Who's next to him? Tish, let me show you. I don't know them. Edward Charles. So yeah, one thing I need to clear up before we go. He was not Jack the Ripper. He's been accused of enough already. He's been accused of, let's go to the... against any Victorian man to be Jack the Ripper. He was certainly not a suspect at the time. What happened is that there was... oh, we've lost the signal. Oh, okay. Is it better now? I'll just wait. I thought it was better. Okay, yes, exactly, Kurt. Richard Wallace, he basically published a book in 1996 called Jack the Ripper, Light-Hearted Friend. And he built up a case against Lewis Carroll and his colleague Thomas Vera Bain as being responsible for the Whitechapel atrocities. Now, the full argument is that basically when Charles wrote the nursery Alice, so there was a new version of Alice in the Wonderland for the little ones, the very little one. In that book, the author, Richard Wallace, has been looking for anagrams. So anagrams, when you swap the letters. We do know that Lewis Carroll was a big fan of anagrams. He was really good at them. But when you start looking for anagrams, you can find them anywhere. And what happened is that he found a line. Well, he found quite a few very, very far-fetched anagrams. But one read, "If I find one street whore, you know what will happen. 'Twill be off with her head." Now, okay, right. But, when you look for those stuff, you do find them. There's been a lot of criticism after his book. And to prove her point, one lady actually did the same with Winnie the Pooh. she managed to find in Winnie the Pooh anagrams that proved murder. And I'll see you next time, Susan. And you know, yeah, he did find there were a few, but that was probably the most shocking one. And also, he claims that Lewis Carroll might have known Montague Druitt. I mean, they were both at Oxford at some point, and in the diaries, there's one moment where he mentions a guy that he doesn't spell it Montague Druitt, but it could be a mistake, and it could have been him. We don't know. But he's got alibis anyway. For most of the murders, he was down south. He was. Oh, but you could come on camera at least. Big. I don't even know what it is. Anyway. So yeah, he was in Eastbourne on a holiday for most of the murders. And the last one, Mary Jane Kelly, was actually in Oxford. So, you know, I don't know much about the man. I don't know whether he did have some strange feelings for little ones, or if maybe he was suffering for Peter Pan syndrome himself. But what I do know is that he's very probably not Jack the Ripper. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me know if you have any questions. I need some water. That hill was, that month was worse than I expected. Because obviously I did it earlier, but I wasn't talking. You know, when you're talking and climbing at the same time, it's a bit, it's hard. Oh, he was definitely a great author with an amazing imagination. What did you miss, Leonie? Everything. Yes, Linda, I'm doing Dark Tales of Guildford in about an hour and 15 minutes. So we'll go back down into town. Cool. Thank you, Tish. Thanks everyone for coming today. If any of you drop me a little tip on buy me a coffee or PayPal me, thank you very much in advance. I cannot see them live, but do know that you are very much appreciated. He spent a lot of time in Sunderland. Ah, cool. Irony. No worries. So I'll see some of you at 8, hopefully. And yes, that's true. Thank you, Leonie. If you've enjoyed that video, do make sure you click the like button. It really helps the content creators to have some likes and comments and shares and engagement. And if you've not hit the notification bell for the next one tonight, make sure you go into my live section to see the next one, Dark Tales of Guildford. Cool. Thank you guys. Have a good one. See you in the next one, hopefully. Bye-bye.